lounging, son.
Back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and today my co-host is Genevieve, who's been with me on the site basically since the beginning. I recognize her from a couple of episodes of the podcast she guested on, where we talked about Bitterroot and Kanto. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, everyone. Super happy to be back again.
Yeah, this is awesome. I've been wanting to do this. I had this idea like kind of in the beginning when I decided to do the YouTube. I thought about doing like just different series with some of the people from the site. You were the first person I thought of, and today we're going to talk about women in comics. We're going to cover a wide range of things. We're going to talk about, I think, representation, readership, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna let you start.
I love being a woman in comic, I guess. I think there's still some stuff that we need to work on, obviously, especially with what's
100%.
going on right now. I think that we have to step up our game, I guess. But overall, I'm really happy and I'm to be part of this universe. You know, I'm really proud also to be like reading comics and to be part of this community. But definitely we need to work on some stuff again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, as I speak to different creators, this past week I spoke to two different women. I spoke to Sophie Dodson, and these will be going up the same week as this video. She's the colorist on Bitterroot Volume 2. She's a designer, and she does so much. I mean, like, dude, she's been in film, TV, video games. I mean, it's crazy. And just talking to them, and Katie Skelly also is a cartoonist. She does a lot of stuff with Fantagraphics. Hearing their opinion on readership and representation, like it differs, because like Sophie Dodson's newer to comics. She colored some Tank Girl stuff, and now she's coloring Bitterroot. Katie Skelly's been doing comics, self-publishing, and now doing her own stuff, and they see it different. I like I said before we started recording, when I was a kid, I didn't have any friends that were girls that read comics, and I always had more more friends that were girls than guys. I don't know what that is. I just always kind of gravitated towards that. I guess maybe because I was a mama's boy, I guess you could say, and I've always been like super protective of my friends that are girls, like standing up for them, whatever. I mean, that's how I got with my lady. Like we were like best friends for years, and I always had her back. And so yeah, I think that. And especially now, like, I have a daughter. So like I'm very like I think I'm more conscious of stuff that has to do with women than, not to say that I didn't before, but now more so. Like I want that stuff. I don't want my daughter to have I don't want there to be any barriers. I don't want there to be any obstacles for her. I want her to be able to do whatever she wants when she wants. But I digress. But yeah, just so like I'm seeing that for me as a fan, I'm seeing more female creatives kind of take to light. Even Kelly Sue touched on it in her conversation that, a few years ago she was on a Marvel panel. She was the only female creative. Now there were editors, but for writers, artists, she was the only one. And then I think maybe last year or maybe a couple of years ago, she said it more than doubled. Or well, obviously more, I think there was like 6 or 7. So for me, like, especially because like I used to mainly read superhero stuff and some indie. In superhero stuff, there's not, but if you look in the indie scene, there's a ton of women, right? And I think that also got brought to my attention in an interview. And I don't know, maybe I should just not really care that it's not in superhero comics, but I feel like superhero comics are really stuck in their ways too, and I think that they need to jump forward and
Very
more.
conservative.
Yeah. I mean,
that's how I feel. They're very conservative. Like I'm not a fan of the big deal.
I don't blame
And
you.
this is this is just my personal impression. This is really just like my own thoughts, but I feel like what we call the boys club is directly related to Marvel and DC. If you go in the indie scene, so if you go just look at Image Comics or any other smaller publisher, you have way more women in the creative teams or just even representations. Like, just better. I mean, you have more LGBTQ representation, you have more women's representation, you have more of that diversity that we are looking for, and that's for me. That's why I prefer. And I don't like I said, I don't really know Marvel and DC because I don't read them because I don't like them. But that's my personal impression that they are the real definition of the boys club, you know. And it's like
Yep.
even the readership, like the people who read Marvel and DC, I don't really connect with them. Like I don't mean like I will connect with readers of Marvel and DC, but I mean like the hardcore fans, you know, like the Twitter hardcore fans that are really like pro Marvel and DC. Like I don't really connect with them. I think it's for that specific reason. And I don't know if I'm the only girl who thinks that, but me personally as a woman, that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see why, right? And I'll ask you in a second. I kind of want to just I do want to find out like how you got into comics. I know you wrote it in the article for the site, but I'd like to get people listening and watching to hear this. But I do notice as working in the shop now, like I'm like, holy crap, there are a lot of women that come in here. Because I'd go into the shop every Wednesday, get my books, talk for like maybe a minute or two, and then I'd get out. Like because that was my day off with my family, so I wasn't trying to like be there forever, but I had to get them on Wednesday. There's just something embedded in me. But it's cool seeing what people read. Like this girl came in the other day, and with the whole COVID thing, she was scared that we were gonna go on lockdown again. She's like, and she came up to me. She was looking for one book, right? I think she's looking for Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue. And then after that, she's like, what do you recommend? And I was just like, I just went off. I'm like, you need this, you need that. And she bought every single book that I recommended. I think I recommended like 7 different trades, and she got all of them, and it is interesting too to see what what women ask for, or what the type of stuff they will ask me to recommend. Now, everything was indie. I mean, there was no DC Marvel in there. The only thing was what she asked for, which was Captain Marvel. There's not enough female-led characters at Marvel, which is why I don't think very many women want to gravitate towards that. And same with DC. I think the only thing that DC has done with female characters that I think has been um, worth checking out is the Lois Lane book by Greg Rucka, which is not even written by a woman, but he knows how to write a strong female character. I think that's evident in his Lazarus series and Black Magic. He knows, and Old Guard as well. But then I also think like when you do have some really strong, like G. Willow Wilson did a run on Wonder Woman, there was no press. Like, so that is also the problem. They're not promoting these books that they should. And then Mariko Tamaki just came on Wonder Woman. Where's the press for that? My manager didn't even know. I was like, why did you only get this many copies? Like, as I was unboxing it, I was like, why wouldn't you, like, this is her first issue. He's like, oh shit. He's like, I didn't know. And I'm like, I just don't understand that. Like if you want to grow, like that's the problem too, is they're not growing readership. They don't, like you said, that they're the boys club. Like they are so stuck in their ways that I don't even think they know how to grow readership anymore. It's such a shame as a fan of these comics since I was 5 years old, and to just see them like not really like growing, because to me it looks like they're scared. I mean, that Batman comic, you know what, that came out, the Black Label, like, dude, you guys got so scared. It wasn't even like, it was a mature label, and you guys are scared of something that's just like, it was in passing. It wasn't like a full page of it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's crazy to me. I don't know. I think I
But
lost
it
my
is
train of thought.
crazy. It is crazy. And I think that part of what you said, that they don't know how to grow their readership. I'm not sure if it's really because they don't know or they don't want to. Because just look at what happened with DC and the new Wonder Woman cover, the variant cover.
Hmm.
People were starting to say that they won't buy DC because of that. Like, like the really conservative readers, like they are really against that. So even if they try to like up their game and reach out to another type of readers, they're let me quote this, original readers won't be happy and will definitely stop reading them. And I don't understand why. Like, you're not okay, maybe you're here since the beginning, again quote, and you're the original quote reader, but there are more people out there who wants to read them, and it's okay to have more diversity. It's okay to go look at something different, you know? So I
Yeah,
think they're afraid of losing that type of readership, that like original readers, the old school ones. They are afraid of losing them to go reach to the modern different readership. I don't really know how to explain this.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I found out about the cover as I came back from vacation. You know, like
Mhm.
there was that wasn't the only news. I already did enough talking about what DC Comics did with all their firing and shit, so I don't want to get into it. But then I heard about a Wonder Woman cover, and so I kind of tried to look because I didn't see a post. I had just seen somebody comment on Twitter that this was a big deal, and I looked at it and I was like wondering like what is the big deal? Like I don't understand. Like it's an artist representation of how they're perceiving Wonder Woman or how they want to represent her. I don't think I mean like when you go to a comic book convention, there's people of all shapes, sizes, colors, even sexes wearing Wonder Woman. There was a dude dressed as Wonder Woman. I didn't go up to him, tap him on the shoulder, and be like, "Hey, bro, maybe you could change that costume." Like, I don't like that. Like so to see that cover, I thought was a beautiful cover. By the way, I think I instantly followed her because I think she's an amazing artist. I was offended to be like and embarrassed to be a fan of DC Comics, knowing that other DC fans were bitching about it. I'm just like, fuck, dude. You guys just look so ignorant and so dumb right now. I don't know. I think that Twitter is just a fucking dumpster fire. It really is.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things that I think has happened. People say Facebook. No, I think it's Twitter because I see so much hate there than any other place. And like I find myself angry when I go on there. So I didn't even read the comments about that cover. I just simply looked for the cover and yeah, remember the Milo Manara Spider-Woman cover that came out? Do you remember
Mm,
hearing about that?
no.
There was a lot of controversy about that, the way he had her posing, and Marvel scrapped that cover.
Mm,
Like it's just like they're too scared of backlash. They don't want to push
exactly.
boundaries anymore. Like you had in the 80s, you had like The Dark Knight Returns and you had Watchmen published by DC. These were comics that like I'm sure maybe the old school guys were like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And the beginnings of Vertigo, and so they used to know how to push boundaries.
Yeah.
You had books like Sandman, and that's not your typical superhero comic book. And you had Constantine and stuff like that, and Lucifer, all these books, and now I feel like everything is watered down. Even
Yeah, they're
this,
just afraid of make people angry. They're afraid of going against going against what people supposedly want, but like if they just look a little bit further, they would see that there's a whole different world of people wanting more diversity, of people wanting more. People, most women that I know really love that cover of Wonder Woman. This cover is incredible, beautiful. I'm not a DC reader, but I will buy it, so I might convert later to DC. That's how it works. Like, I like this, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna read it. If I like it, I'm gonna keep buying it. But if they stay in their original content, if they stay in their lane, they're never gonna be able to do that. They're never gonna be able to reach out to new readers and more readers. But they're just so, that's what bothers me. They're so afraid of going against public. They're just like cowards for me.
yeah,
This just like
yeah, I agree.
they want to please their readership, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you know me, I love DC. Everybody that's ever watched me talk, listened to me talk, watched anything on my site knows that I love DC Comics. My arm has DC Comics on it. But the minute I found out about the way they were firing and then other shit, I was like, I tweeted out, real quick, I jumped on there. I was like, DC Comics makes it hard to be a fan. And I'm very close to just like completely dropping them because I just don't want to be a part of it. And whether somebody from DC that follows me sees it or not, I don't really care because that's how I feel. And I'm not going to like hide what I feel because I want favor from DC. Like if you guys don't want me to promote your shit or you don't want to do interviews with me, cool. That's fine. I don't need it. Like I'm not going to support something I don't believe in, and I'm not going to do something I don't believe in. And if that doesn't get me a lot of followers or it loses me followers, so be it, you know, because I'm going to stay true to who I am and what I believe. Yeah, they get a little bit of controversy and they're like, whoop, can't do it.
Exactly.
I mean, look how long it took from like just that Batman comic, like I said, from issue 1 to 2, it took forever to come out. And why? Because editorial probably had them change a bunch of shit. And if I'm being honest, those last 2 issues felt watered down. It felt like the editorial had their hands all over it, and it wasn't as strong, I think, as the first issue. But I mean, I'm saying DC, but Marvel does the same shit, you know. So
Yeah. But that's one of the problem that I think need to be solved, because reading the comments of that controversy of the Wonder Woman cover, I was like, this is impossible. We are not like, these were like 1940s comments. Like,
mhm.
like that women are ruining everything, that like women are just bringing their political agenda in this, like leave comics out of politics and blah 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna step down, because I might like yell at somebody. I might like do something, because it was really insulting to read that. For example, I am a woman. Reading that I supposedly ruin everything because I want to read comics. This is insulting. Like, stop this. It's not because I'm a woman that I'm ruining everything. I love comics. I genuinely love comics. I'm not pushing an agenda. I'm not trying to change everything, even if in female creators they have a different point of view, because they all have a different creative mind, and it's
Mhm.
not because they are different, that it's not because they don't draw women with big boobs, which I know I have nothing against. I love when the characters have like different shapes and forms, even if they have big boobs and whatever. But like, it's not just that. Calm the fuck down, man. Calm down. You know? That's
Yeah.
what I thought. I was like, can you just calm the fuck down? First of all, it's just a variant cover. Like, Wonder Woman is not changed. At the end of the day, it's just a variant cover, so you can calm the fuck down, just don't buy it. And
Yeah.
second of all, like, it's just different. Like, open your eyes. There are different people out there other than you.
Yeah, I mean, you say that that they said politics shouldn't be in comics. One of the creators that was writing comics in the 60s and 70s, Jerry Conway, that I just talked to, he's the guy that co-created The Punisher. He's the one that killed Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Man comics. He brought that up. He's like, you know, people are bitching about politics, not shouldn't be in comics. He said politics have always been in
They
comics.
are
You
always
know,
been in comic.
so I think these people, especially like let's just call them who they are, especially the Comicsgate people, they are some of the most ignorant, vile, scumbag pieces of shit heard of, seen, listened to. Like I listened really quickly. Dylan sent me a link to a Comicsgater that has a YouTube channel, and it is horrendous. And you know, Ethan Van Sciver, one of the main guys of Comicsgate, what he said about Tess Fowler and her cancer, that like she deserved to get it and
Yeah.
he's happy. I mean, oh man, I don't yeah, I don't want to get too into that, but yeah, I can't stand these motherfuckers with their bitching about female represent or the way women or you know any of the technically I guess minority groups in comics, the way they're ruining comics. No, motherfucker, you are ruining comics
Yeah.
with your negative ass bullshit. So
And
but I
that's the thing though. Like, how can you expect women to be happy about the community and to be happy to feel included in the comic community when you have stupid bunch of people commenting that they are ruining everything, that they're just like bad and stuff like that? It's not nice to go on Twitter and read all of these comments just because of a freaking variant cover.
yeah, yeah, it's
And
crazy.
it's really, it makes me sad and it makes me mad, because I think that I have a nice point of view about comics. I think that I genuinely love comics, and I think that I'm able to share that love. I think that I'm positive for the community.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that I really try hard to like showcase how comics are a good medium to like talk about these stuff. But reading that, it's like, how do you perceive me myself as a human being? If you think that my opinion has no value, if you think that I'm ruining everything, if we meet in person outside of Twitter, how are you gonna treat me? Are you gonna catcall me in the street? Are you gonna like sexually harass me? Are you gonna, you know what I mean? Like go in conventions. The way that women go in Comic-Con is not the same way that men go at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We are taught, like since the beginning, we are taught to not wear your skirt too short. You might get touched. It happened before that creators, men, would have a booth at Comic-Con and take pictures with women, with female fans, and just like be inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
and take advantage of the fans. It's scary to think that we are in 2020 and the things are better now, but then you go on Twitter and all these men as these comments about a variant cover, so about a fictional character. And it's not just like things that women ruin everything. It's like really ugly stuff like this drawing is disgusting. I don't want a fat Wonder Woman. I don't want a Wonder Woman with small boobs. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's like directly commenting on woman's body, and it's wrong because if you are able to comment those horrible things about a fictional character, what are you doing when you meet a real person?
I mean, these are probably the same overweight dudes that have boobs themselves sitting
Exactly.
behind their computer. And, you know, it's the day and age that we live in, right? It's people feel some sort of like power or sense of entitlement, like that their opinion. I don't want to, well, I don't want to say that people's opinions don't matter because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I don't want to be a hypocrite and say that ours matters, but theirs doesn't. But they're so quick to throw their stupid opinions out there and think that they matter when really all they are is ignorant. And it's like in the restaurant, when I worked at the restaurant, people would be like, "Oh yeah, it was great, thank you." And then those same people, when they would leave, would go on Yelp and
Yeah.
leave like this really long bad review. And I would recognize their faces. And I'm just like, God, these people are just they're just little bitches, you know? Like, why can't you just like be a human being and deal with a problem face to face? Instead, you run, you hide behind your little phone, or you go on your computer, and then you just spew all this negative hate. And it's really just it's social media. While it serves its purpose, I think especially for people to promote themselves or market or share stuff that they love, there's also that really dark side, and that's super evident in like what you were talking about with the Wonder Woman cover. But let's I don't want to get too much into the negative. Let's talk more about the positive. That's how I met you. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
met you on Instagram. I think I'd read a couple of your posts and I'm like, dude, I love her opinion on comics. I noticed you had no superhero stuff, so I'm like, I that's why I asked you um, to write for the site. And now, like, I think it's over almost a year and a half, right? Maybe going
Yeah.
on 2 years. I don't know. It feels like I
I
feels like
think
I've known
it's
you a
a
long
year and a
time.
half. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've known you a long time. I think even when we met in person, it felt like I was meeting an old friend. But I did want to ask you, how did you get into comics? You know what I mean? Like I know you didn't gravitate towards the superhero stuff, but what was it like? Like what drew you to the shop that first time?
um, that's actually a really, really long story. So I always read comics. It's always been, I was going to the library with my mom, and I would rent French comics, so French from France, European comics, and it's really different than the American style, like really, 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 really different. And I was reading Tintin, Asterix, Obelix, and all that stuff, and it's really like cartoony style, cartoony, and no superheroes. I wasn't reading superheroes either, and my mom made me discover Garfield, and I loved it because I love cats, and I read all the Garfield and was really in love with it. And then that's just how I grew up. And then um, in my adult life, at 18 years old, I went to my very first Comic Con and with a friend, and I met a creator, Jibril Morissette fan, a Canadian creator, but he did a glitter bomb from Image Comics.
Oh,
He's
okay.
an artist, and he made me discover this comic shop in Montreal, Millennium Comics. And for me, it was like, oh my God, like it was a whole other a whole other world, you know? Like
Yeah.
I've never I don't know why, but I wasn't aware that in Montreal we had comic shops. I thought it was only like bookstore, regular bookstore, and I didn't like I never really purchased any comics before. But when I discovered Millennium, I started going more regularly, and the comic shop owner, he made me discover all, like, he was really, really kind and friendly, and he just like saw me browsing and he was like, "Can I help you with something?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm just looking. I don't really know." He's like, "What comics do you like?" And I really loved the movie Hellboy.
Yeah.
So that's all I knew. I was like, "Well, I like Hellboy." And it's like, "Okay." And he started like recommending comics here and there, and after a while he recommended Preacher, and I read the whole thing, and then I just started to trust like all his opinion. And after a while I started to trust, like I discovered what I really like, and that's just how I got into comics. I started buying and buying and buying and buying and never ending.
Yeah, I know it is a never-ending journey, especially like if you get into it later. I mean, I find myself like I've been collecting since I told you since I was 5, or reading them since I was 5. So that's like 28 years, and I still find stuff that I didn't read. That's been out for years, and it's insane. It's a never-ending battle.
Yeah.
Um,
But for me, honestly, discovering comics was all about connection. So,
yeah,
for example, if my mom never brought me to the library, I would never have discovered that I love European comic. And then after that, if I've never met Jibril, I've never would have discovered Millennium, or maybe much, much, much later. And then my friend is the one who brought me to my first Comic Con, and without her, I would never have discovered really Comic Con. And after a while, I went at my third or fourth Comic Con. I met another guy, Brad, who he was a reseller, I guess you can say that. So he had a booth and he was selling a bunch of comics, of used comics, and I love Brad so much. Even to this day, I'm still talking to him. I'm still like seeing him, and he's just so passionate. And he honestly is the one I bought like maybe 80% of my collection from him. He just recommended a bunch of stuff. So it's again another connection I had, like without him I would never have this many books, I guess. That's what I really love. That's why I'm really insistent on loving the community, because for me, without the community, I would never be here right now.
yeah, I know. I love that you say it was all like one thing led to another, because I mean that's what I love about comics too, because like even though I've been collecting so much longer than you still recommend stuff to me. And I love sharing recommendations, and I love when people share stuff with me, because it kind of helps me, like there's so much content out there, right? So like it definitely helps when somebody can be like, they just point you straight to something, as opposed to like you're like, do I have to try this out? Like, am I gonna like it? Am I not? Like, so if I trust someone's opinion, like yours or Dylan's, like I'll check something out. My manager at the shop, he has been recommending comics to me for years, and he's never recommended a bad book. I mean, he's the one that recommended like Pretty Deadly to me.
Hmm.
It's one of his favorite books. What are some of your favorite female creatives, or female character led books in comics?
Female creators, I really love Liana Kangas. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but she's the artist on She Said Destroy.
Hmm.
I really love her just because she has a really kind personality. I have her on Instagram and she follows me, and I just love how she's a really passionate person, and that's something that I really love. But I mean, I love a bunch of different female creators too. They are all really good in my opinion. Khaleesi DeConning, all Fiona Staple, all these
Yeah.
people are really, I mean, they are great. They have like big names and they're working on big comics, so they are amazing. I'm not really, for example, when I pick up a comic, I'm not really looking at who's doing it. I'm not
Hmm.
looking at a creative team. I'm just looking at what the story is about. So it's hard for me to say who is really my favorite person.
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of female lead in comics, this is a really difficult one. I I have so many. I mean, I think that all the characters in Saga or Paper Girls are amazing. Paper Girls is nice because it's a female cast, so 4 little girls, and they're all amazing. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say because there are so many. Monstress, obviously. I really love the
Right.
characters in Monstress too. Again, mostly female lead. She's building a society led by by women, by female. So all of them are really cool. For me as a reader, and I don't really look at, and that's something also that people I guess don't understand, is that I don't look at, I'm not a fan, like, how can I say this? I don't look at the character and being like, oh, I love this character. I look at the overall vision. So, for example, is the story good? Yes. The character, are they good? Yes. Is it just one character that's good, or all of them are good? So I'm not, and that's something that I don't understand when they say woman ruin comics, because I'm not pro female everywhere all the way. Like, I'm not a feminazi, how they say, like, that's how they say it. I don't know. But like, I just love seeing diversity in comics, because that represents the world we live in, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but do you definitely like, do you pay attention to the way, um, like the way female characters are represented in comics? Is that something that, like, if you see the representation maybe not something you like, does that turn you off of from a book? Because like I don't necessarily look at female representation the way the characters are represented. I can recognize though, like I told you, like Greg Rucka, I think he writes great women. Brian K. Vaughan, obviously,
Yeah.
he writes great women too. But it's not something I pay attention to. Maybe that's not good, but is that something that you look for? Like that you like as a woman, you want to see women represented in a certain way when you're reading the story, or is that something you
No.
don't really think
I
about?
don't mind if it's a blonde girl with big boobs being naive and stupid. I don't mind that. As long as it fits the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as long as it's important to the story that she is like that. If she needs to be naive, and if she needs to be, because that's sometimes how women are portrayed, like they're naive little girls that needs their strong, powerful man, you know, and I don't mind that as long as it fits the story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to see a badass woman. It can be a really stupid woman. I don't care as long as it really belongs in the story. Because I look at the story, right? I don't read a story. Don't read a comic book for the characters. I read them for
The
the
whole
story,
package.
the whole package, and what it brings me, the emotion that it brings me. And if it's funny, it's funny. If it's not, it's not. And as long as, because sometimes I feel like they're just bringing characters just to bring them, like they're just like, I don't really know how to explain this, but sometimes it's just like, what does this character do? You know, what's the purpose of this one? It's just, it doesn't make any sense in the story, and that's what I notice. And it can be male or female. In terms of character, I think that in terms of characters, comic books are will adjust. I mean, we have a bunch of everything in the indie department, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the indie department, you have a bunch of different characters with a bunch of different personalities, styles, um, physical appearance. You have everything. So that's why I feel like it's not a problem anymore. I feel like more and more creative team are expressing themselves differently, and we have different characters, and that's something that I really love about it. But I don't like go and buy a comics because this character looks like that, you know?
Yeah. I think the perfect example of like, in my opinion, the way women of different varieties and different personalities is Love and Rockets. I know you just got the books. I don't know if you've started them yet.
Not yet.
Um, you're gonna. I really like you more than anybody. I really just want to know what you think about it when you finally do read it, because I think the way Jaime draws women, the way he portrays them, and their different like each one is very unique with their personality, their body type. I think like one of the main ones is um, Maggie is like one of his main characters. And in the beginning, you see her when she's young and she's like skinny, and now she's kind of more, you know, she's a little thicker. You know what I mean? Like she's not fat. I don't want to say fat. That's not the right way to say it, but she's a little thicker. And like she talks about her body in there, and it's just it feels so real. Like by the time like you get through most of those stories, you feel like you really know them. And I think that he's worked on these characters since like 81, and he's stuck with them this whole time. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things in indie comics, that in general, in the entire medium, it's one of the most important comics, and I think that everybody should read it. it's also been attributed to growing female readership because women were able to gravitate, especially back then, there wasn't as many indie comics as like when you got into comics. There was nothing, right? It was Marvel, DC, and maybe a couple small ones, but women gravitated towards that because they felt represented in that and they could connect to it on a level that there was no Saga, there was no Paper Girls, there was no this, that, or whatever. It was all just superhero. And I mean, there wasn't even Watchmen back then. You know what I mean? Like there was no indie stuff, no Vertigo. So I definitely like once you read it, I think we should do another video and we should
Yeah.
definitely talk about it. But I do before we get out of here, I do want to ask you what you like. I think we should let's talk about it. What we think comics definitely needs more of in terms of representation and maybe how to grow readership and not exclude certain people, which is what I think Marvel and DC sometimes do in their actions. Like what do you think? I mean, I share it all the time, but I kind of want to get your opinion on it.
It's really hard because I mean, growing readership for me, if I base it on my experience, um, for me, it would have been easier and it would have been faster to go to be in comics if the community was in such a close world. Like for example, it happened before that I went to a comic store and they will look down on me because I'm a young woman. Like, oh, like she what is she doing here? Like this attitude of like being like you're not a comic reader. You don't look like a comic reader. You're not like, oh, you're probably just wanting to buy like a bunch of female characters comics and whatever, like or whatever, or just being an indie reader. Oh, you don't read Marvel and DC, you're not a real reader. So this really puts me off, and especially in the beginning, um, if I haven't found like this Millennium Comics was really kind and really inclusive, I went to different comic shops after, and the vibe is really different. It's like they're really looking down on you because you don't have the look, and that I would say that's the beginning. If you want more readership, be more inclusive. Like
Hmm.
yourself as a person, be more inclusive. The the big companies, I think that Image Comics is really nice. I mean, they have really different stuff. They even
Hmm.
have right now they have a permanent list of Black Lives Matter, Black creators comics on their website. You have a section LGBTQ plus list of comics that they have. So I feel like they are trying, and
Hmm.
they might not be perfect, but at least they are trying, and they don't care about the audience, so they will put out a comics even if it's a strong female lead, even if it's a like for example a gay or transgender or whatever lead, they will put it out there. They won't care what the audience is gonna say. They're just gonna, if they like it, they're gonna put it out there, and that's something that I love. So I feel like the problem is really coming out of the same two big companies
Yeah.
that are really just cowards. So they can show example. I mean, if you want the problem to go away, they could start by showing example of like pushing boundaries and saying like, no, you know what? We want this comic out there. We want this cover out there because we like it, and not
Hmm.
like just removing it because oh the audience doesn't like it. That would be a start, but then also you as a reader be more inclusive.
Yeah, I definitely I see that. I see the other publisher like Boom is even I
Yeah,
think starting to really change from what they were doing, which is mostly licensed stuff. And then you got IDW. I think they're kind of shifting
kind
towards
of.
more, but not really there yet. But I mean, yeah, I think Image Comics. I think they've really I mean, you look at when they started, and it's so far from what they were when they started, and they constantly push the boundaries of what comics can and should be. I think another publisher that I I don't know if you know I'm sure you know of Fantagraphics. I mean, they do the Love and Rocket stuff, but if you
Hmm.
look at the catalog of what they have, it's phenomenal. And I think that they don't get nearly enough mainstream, I guess you could say, quote unquote, recognition.
But that's
Like,
something too. I feel like we are giving so much thoughts on Marvel and DC. And yeah, okay, they are the first one, whatever, whatever. But like times change. It's time for them to either evolve and improve or go away. That I'm sorry, but like that's my opinion. If they're not able to evolve and improve, they're just gonna be this safe space for comic skater. And that's not
mhm.
something that I want in my community. I don't want them to have a safe space. So for me, they're Marvel and DC, they need to up their game, evolve and improve, or they need to go away and we need to make more place to indie publishers.
Yeah,
That's just what I
I,
think.
I see what you're saying, and but the direct market will if there's no Marvel DC, they each like Marvel's like 40% of the market and DC's 30. If that
I know.
70% goes, we don't have comic book stores. So they just need to change. I mean, bottom line, because if they go away,
Yeah, exactly.
we will not have a comic book store anymore, and I don't want to see that happen. But you also think about like we got Disney on one hand with Marvel, and we have AT&T, Time Warner with DC, and they don't want to push the envelope too much. You know what I mean? If they hear a little bit of backlash from people, they're like, "Oh, we got to scrap it. We can't do it." Bottom line is, we just need to see change from them. I definitely think we like, and I try to at least with what I do with the site and the channel is promote more of the indie stuff and shed some light on stuff that maybe the majority of people may not know. Anybody watching, listening, definitely look at Fantagraphics, look at their catalog. They have so many great creatives of all walks of life. Like there's so many different ideas being represented there, and they're amazing. I mean, they're phenomenal. I'm telling you, like they jumped ahead of DC for me. I'd say right now my favorite publishers would be Image and Fantagraphics, and then Marvel is below because they haven't quite pissed me off all the way yet. But they're they'll get there, I'm sure. But
But I
yeah,
think that change comes, I mean, change is comes from us individuals, like
yeah.
as human being. So if you want things to change, like be curious, go out there, look at stuff, read stuff, stay aware. Like just don't stay in your bubble, you know? I think that if we want more diversity in comics, we need people to be more aware of it, and we need people, readers. When I say people, it's readers. We need readers to be more acceptance, like have more acceptance and just more curiosity. Like go out there and read what else they have on the market, because it's not just superhero comics. It's not even just Image Comics. Even if it's really big, it's not just them. There's a bunch of different indie comics. Go at your Comic Con, go visit the artist alley. They have they have self-published comics.
Hmm.
Go on Etsy, find out about self-published comics. You know, like just go out there and you'll find a whole like an entire different world. If you are mad about not having enough representation, if you are mad about seeing those Twitter comments, if you are mad about having Marvel and DC pulling out things because the audience doesn't like it, just go out there and discover more by yourself, and you'll see a different side of the community that you're gonna love.
That's a great spot to end. I like the way you closed it out. So, this is going to be a series that Jen and I will continue. We'll probably do some more videos, cover some different topics. For anybody that wants to follow along, you can find us at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. You can leave your comments or suggestions down below, or you can email us at comicloungepod@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Um, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we drop a new one of these. You can also find Jen on Instagram at Life of a Geeky Mind. I will drop all these links to everything down below. And on that note, we're out.